I never thought my own apartment would become the center of a family war. But that is exactly what happened when my sister decided my property should be her wedding gift. My sister Natalia's text message glowed on my phone screen that Tuesday afternoon. Family dinner tonight at Mom and Dad's. Be here before 7. Important wedding stuff to discuss. My stomach clenched instantly. In my family's language, important wedding stuff had become shorthand for Alicia needs to pay for something else. The 25,000 pesos I had already contributed to my sister's wedding supposedly covered everything, but somehow there was always one more essential thing they simply could not do without. I looked back at the quarterly reports scattered on my desk, their neat columns and predictable patterns a stark contrast to the chaos my sister brought into my life. As a chief financial officer at Cabrera Industries, numbers were my sanctuary. People, specifically family, were infinitely more complicated. I will be there, I texted back, already mentally preparing my refusal speech. At 34, I had built what most would consider a successful life. My job paid well enough that checking my bank account before making purchases had become a distant memory. I owned 2 apartments. My current home in the city center and my first property in the suburbs, the one I bought when I started earning good money. The one in the suburbs was where my sister and her fiancé Alonso had been living rent-free for 3 years. If you asked anyone who knows me to describe my life, they would probably say stable. They would be right, except for the perpetual hurricane that was my younger sister. While I was studying finance and working unpaid internships, Natalia was getting caught sneaking out to parties. When I celebrated my first promotion, she called from a police station after getting a ticket for skinny dipping at the beach. Last year, when I closed a major deal at work, Natalia decided to try to become an influencer and maxed out our parents' credit card on camera equipment that now gathered dust in her garage. I had not seriously dated anyone in 3 years, not since I found my ex-boyfriend in bed with his coworker. That betrayal left scars, and I had focused on my career since then. Natalia, meanwhile, had been with her college sweetheart Alonso for years. They were finally getting married in 2 weeks, and the wedding preparations had consumed everyone's attention. When I arrived at my parents' colonial-style house that evening, something felt immediately off. Mom, Dad, Natalia, and Alonso were huddled in the living room, speaking in low tones. They fell silent the moment I walked in. "Hi everyone," I said, hanging my coat in the hallway closet. Dad nodded in my direction, while Natalia and Alonso exchanged a look that made my stomach tighten even more. I know my sister better than anyone, and that look meant trouble. "So what is this important wedding stuff?" I asked, taking a seat opposite them. "We will discuss it over dinner," Mom said, ushering everyone into the dining room. Dinner was strangely tense. Dad talked about his golf game, while Mom kept refilling wine glasses. Natalia and Alonso barely touched their food, still giving each other those knowing glances. Finally, as Mom brought out dessert, Natalia cleared her throat. "Alicia, we need to have a serious conversation." I braced myself. "Let me guess, you want to release doves at the ceremony? Or maybe hire a skywriting plane?" "No, nothing like that," Natalia said, looking uncharacteristically serious. "This is about your wedding gift to us." I raised an eyebrow. "My wedding gift? I thought the 25,000 pesos I already gave you was my gift." "Well," Natalia said, glancing at Alonso, then at our parents before turning back to me, "we have all been talking, and we think there is something specific you should give us." I waited, my fork suspended in mid-air. "Your apartment," she said finally. "The one in the suburbs, where Alonso and I have been living." I almost choked on my wine. "Excuse me. We love that place," Alonso chimed in, as if that explained everything. "We have been living there for 3 years, and it feels like our home." "It is the perfect wedding gift," Natalia added. "We have already planned the renovations and picked out new furniture." For a moment I thought they were joking, but the serious expressions on their faces told me otherwise. They genuinely expected me to gift them my apartment, valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, as a wedding present. "You cannot be serious," I said, setting down my glass. "I already gave you 25,000 pesos for this wedding, not to mention you have been living in my apartment rent-free for 3 years. I do not even make you pay utilities." Natalia's face flushed with anger. "We thought you would be happy to help us start our married life. By gifting my property?" property I worked incredibly hard for. I could feel my blood pressure rising. Do you have any idea how many hours I put in to afford those apartments? How many years I spent paying off those mortgages? Alicia, Mom interjected, her voice sharp. Do not be so greedy. You are successful, you have another apartment. Your sister is getting married. This would be a wonderful gesture. I stared at her in disbelief. Greedy? I have been supporting Natalia for years. I paid for her car repairs, her last vacation, and now a lavish wedding. How am I the greedy one here? How dare you? Natalia shouted, standing up. Her face was red with rage. Do you think you are so perfect with your fancy job and your 2 apartments? I stared at her, stunned by the sudden outburst. You are selfish, Alicia. You only think about yourself, she continued, practically spitting the words. Look at you, 34, almost 35, alone and aging by the minute. No husband, no kids, nothing. In a few years, no one will even see you as a woman. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my parents, expecting them to intervene, to tell Natalia she had gone too far. Instead, they sat there, nodding. Your sister is right, Alicia, Mom said softly. Natalia has found love. She is building a life with Alonso. You should help her. After all, it is not like you have a personal life to invest in. The room started to spin. My own family, people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, were attacking me for not gifting my property. Worse, they were using my single status as a weapon against me. I cannot believe what I am hearing, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I have worked so hard for everything I have. Natalia has been living in my apartment rent-free for 3 years. And I have given her 25,000 pesos for this wedding. And this is how you thank me? By demanding more and insulting me. I grabbed my purse and stood up. I am not giving you my apartment, not now, not ever. Alicia, sit down, Dad ordered, but I was already heading for the door. You are going to regret this, Natalia yelled after me. You are going to end up alone, with nothing but your money and your precious apartments. I slammed the door behind me and practically ran to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Once inside, I let out a sob I had been holding in. How could they do this to me? How could they treat me like I was nothing more than an ATM with an apartment to hand over? I drove aimlessly for a while, too upset to go straight home. Eventually, I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and went inside. I needed to calm down before I could face the drive home. Large black coffee, please, I told the barista, my voice still trembling. As I sat in a corner, my phone started vibrating incessantly. Calls from Mom, Dad, and Natalia. I silenced it and put it face down on the table. The text started rolling in immediately after. Mom. Alicia, please come back and let us discuss this rationally. Dad. Your behavior was unacceptable. Call us immediately. Then Natalia's texts, each one worse than the last. You have always been jealous of me. Your biological clock is ticking, tick-tock. No wonder you are still single. Who would want to be with someone so cold and selfish? You look older than 34. Those wrinkles are not going away. I turned my phone off completely. The cruelty of it all was overwhelming. These were people who were supposed to love me, support me. Instead, they were treating me like an obstacle to their plans that involved taking what was mine. As I sipped my coffee, I made a decision. Tomorrow after work, I would go to my apartment in the suburbs and tell Natalia and Alonso they needed to move out. I had been more than generous letting them live there rent-free. This was how they repaid me. No more. They had 2 weeks until their wedding, plenty of time to find a new place. The next day at work, I could barely concentrate. I kept replaying the dinner conversation in my head, each time feeling a fresh wave of anger and pain. By the time 5 p.m. rolled around, I was ready to confront my sister. I drove to the suburban apartment, rehearsing what I would say. I would not yell, I would not cry. I would simply inform them that they had 30 days to vacate the premises, a generosity considering I could legally give them less time. When I arrived, I noticed Alonso's car was not in the parking lot. Good, it would be easier to talk to Natalia alone. I walked up to the door and knocked firmly. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I could hear movement inside. Someone was definitely home. Natalia, open up. I know you are in there, I called, ringing the doorbell repeatedly. After several minutes of this, I tried my key. It did not work. Confused, I tried again, wiggling it in the lock. That is when I realized they had changed the locks on my apartment. The audacity was stunning. I pulled out my phone and called Natalia, my hands trembling with rage. "What do you want?" she answered, her voice cold. "Why the hell are the locks on my apartment changed?" I demanded. There was a pause, then Natalia actually laughed. "It is not your apartment anymore, Alicia. It is ours now. Have you lost your mind? That apartment is in my name. I paid for it. I own it." "Not for long," she said smugly. "And do not bother threatening to call the police or sue us. We both know you would never take your own sister to court, Natalia. Goodbye, Alicia." The line went dead. I stood there, staring at my phone in disbelief. My first instinct was to call my parents. Surely they would make Natalia see reason. But then I remembered their faces last night, nodding as Natalia insulted me. They would not help. They had never taken my side over Natalia's, and they were not about to start now. Back in my apartment, I poured myself a large glass of wine and sank onto my couch. My mind raced with possible solutions. I could call a lawyer, I could call the police, but would I really want to see my sister arrested? Despite everything, the thought made me uneasy. As I contemplated my options, my phone buzzed with a notification. Natalia had posted something new on social media. Against my better judgment, I opened the app to see what she had shared. My stomach dropped as I read her post. "With a heavy heart, Alonso and I, along with my parents, have decided not to invite my sister Alicia to our wedding in 2 weeks. Someone who does not behave like family does not deserve to be present on our special day. We look forward to celebrating with all our other loved ones." The post already had dozens of comments from relatives and family friends, most expressing confusion or asking what had happened. Natalia was not responding to any of them, letting everyone speculate. Almost immediately, my phone started ringing with calls from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all wanting to know what was going on. I ignored them all. What could I say? That my sister demanded I give her my apartment as a wedding gift, and when I refused, my entire family turned against me? I turned off my phone and finished my wine, then poured myself another glass. The situation felt surreal. How had things escalated so quickly? 24 hours ago, I was just a woman going to a family dinner. Now, I was being publicly disowned by my sister 2 weeks before her wedding. As the initial shock wore off, a plan began to form in my mind. Natalia and my parents thought they had the upper hand, that they could bully and manipulate me into giving up my property. They were wrong. If they wanted to play hardball, I could play too. But I needed to wait for the right moment. The wedding would be in 2 weeks. That would be my chance. Those 2 weeks dragged on endlessly. At work, I threw myself into projects to keep myself distracted. At home, I avoided social media and kept my phone on silent. Occasionally, I would check messages from my parents or Natalia, only to find more blame and insults. None of them showed any remorse or understanding of how inappropriately they had behaved. I contacted a locksmith I knew from when I had locked myself out of my city apartment last year. "Victor, I need a special favor," I told him over the phone. "I need you to meet me at my other property on the 14th. The current occupants changed the locks without my permission." "No problem, Alicia," he replied. "I can take care of that for you." Next, I booked a storage unit not far from the suburban apartment and paid for 3 months up front. I also hired movers for the wedding day, giving them specific instructions on what to do. Finally, the wedding day arrived. I knew Natalia, Alonso, my parents, and most of our extended family would be at the ceremony and reception all day. The timing was perfect. I met Victor, the locksmith, at my apartment at 9 a.m., just as wedding preparations would be underway across town. Within minutes, he had the door open. He installed a new lock and handed me the keys. "All set. They will not be getting back in without this." I thanked him and paid him generously. Then I stepped inside my apartment. Looking around, I was shocked at what I saw. Natalia and Alonso had redecorated without my knowledge or permission. New curtains hung in the living room, and the walls that had been beige were now painted a deep blue. They had even removed some of my furniture and replaced it with pieces I did not recognize. The audacity hit me again. They truly believed this place was already theirs. Taking a deep breath, I got to work. I found some large boxes in the storage closet and started packing Natalia and Alonso's personal belongings. Clothes, toiletries, books, electronics. Anything that clearly belonged to them went into the boxes. Took hours. By mid-afternoon, I had filled over 20 boxes with their possessions. The movers arrived at 3 p.m. as scheduled. Take all these boxes to this storage unit, I instructed them, handing them the address and access code. Stack them neatly so they are accessible. While the movers worked, I sat at the kitchen table and composed a text message to Natalia. Congratulations on your wedding day. I hope it is everything you dreamed of. Your wedding gift from me is in storage unit 247 at Westside Storage. The access code is 5529. All of your and Alonso's belongings are there, packed safely. As for the apartment, I have changed the locks again. Since you are married now, I am sure you understand it is time for you to find your own place to live. This is the only wedding gift you deserve from me. I did not send the message yet. I would wait until the movers were finished and I was back home. By 6 p.m., the apartment was empty of their belongings. I looked around at the changes they had made. The painted walls, the new curtains, the rearranged furniture. It would take work to restore it to its original condition, but that was a problem for another day. I locked up with my new keys and drove home. Once there, I poured myself a glass of champagne. A small celebration for taking back control of my property and my life. At 8 p.m., when I knew the reception would be in full swing, I sent the text message to Natalia. The response was almost immediate. My phone exploded with calls and messages from Natalia, from Alonso, from my parents, even from some relatives at the wedding. I did not answer any of them. Natalia, you ruined my wedding day. How could you do this? Mom. Alicia, your sister is in tears. What have you done? Dad. This behavior is unacceptable. Call us immediately. Alonso. You had no right to touch our things. The messages kept coming, each one more desperate and angry. My parents threatened to tell the whole family what a terrible person I was. Natalia swore I would regret this for the rest of my life. I turned off my phone, took my champagne to the bathtub, and enjoyed a long, quiet soak. For the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace with my decisions. The next day, I slept in late. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were dozens more messages, but I deleted them all unread. Instead, I opened my laptop and started drafting a social media post. I have been silent about recent family events, but I feel it is time to share my side. 3 years ago, I allowed my sister and her fiancé to live rent-free in an apartment I own. Recently, they demanded I give them this apartment, valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, as a wedding gift. When I refused, they changed the locks, claimed the property as theirs, and uninvited me from their wedding. Yesterday, I reclaimed my property and moved their belongings to a storage unit. I am deeply saddened that my generosity was met with such entitlement, and that my parents supported this behavior. I wish them all the best, but I have decided to step away from these relationships for my own well-being. I hesitated before posting, wondering if I was being too harsh or airing too much dirty laundry, but then I remembered Natalia's public uninvitation to her wedding, and the cruel messages about my appearance and single status. I deserve to tell my side of the story. I hit post and closed my laptop. Within hours, my post had hundreds of comments. To my surprise, most were supportive. Your sister is delusional. Who demands an apartment as a gift? You let them live there rent-free for 3 years and they wanted more. My cousin Sophia commented, now I understand why you were not at the wedding. For what it is worth, Natalia was asking everyone for expensive gifts. She literally told me my planned gift was not good enough. I had not expected this outpouring of support. I had been prepared for everyone to side with Natalia, as they usually did. Instead, people were reaching out to tell me they understood my position and thought my sister was being unreasonable. Meanwhile, my parents and Natalia continued their barrage of messages. The tone gradually shifted from angry to pleading. Mom. Alicia, please call us. We need to talk about this as a family. Dad. Your mother is very upset. This is not good for her blood pressure. Natalia. Have you made your point? Can we talk now? I did not respond to any of them. After years of being taken for granted, of having my generosity exploited, I needed time and space to process everything. A week after the wedding, I asked the building concierge to restrict access to my apartment. No members of my family are to be allowed up under any circumstances, I instructed. 2 weeks after the wedding, I heard from my friend, Nora, that Natalia and Alonso had canceled their honeymoon trip to Bali. They say they need the money for rent now, Nora explained over lunch. Natalia is complaining to anyone who will listen about how you kicked them out, and they had to find a place on short notice. I speared a piece of lettuce with my fork. They had 3 years to save for their own place. Instead, they repainted my apartment without permission and tried to steal it. A month passed, then another. The calls and messages became less frequent. Occasionally, my mother would send a text asking how I was, or suggesting we meet for coffee. My father sent a formally toned email about resolving family differences. Natalia's messages oscillated between angry accusations and desperate pleas to let them back into their home. I maintained my silence. The wound was still too raw, the betrayal too deep. In September, 3 months after the wedding, I hired painters to restore my suburban apartment to its original colors. I replaced the curtains Natalia had hung, and brought back the furniture she had removed. Once it was back to its original state, I put it up for rent at market rate this time. Meanwhile, I was making other changes in my life. The whole ordeal had been a wake-up call. I had spent years prioritizing work and family obligations over my own happiness. Now I was determined to find a better balance. I joined a hiking club that met on weekends. On one of these hikes, I met Lucas, an environmental engineer with a quick smile and thoughtful manners. We struck up a conversation about local wildlife, and by the end of the hike, he asked for my number. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Unlike my previous relationships, there were no games or hidden agendas, just two adults enjoying each other's company. For months after the wedding incident, I received a formal letter from my parents. Inside, there was an invitation to Thanksgiving dinner. "We miss you," my mother had written at the bottom. "Please consider coming. Natalia and Alonso will not be there." I mulled over the invitation for days. Part of me wanted to maintain the boundary I had set. Another part missed the family I once had, before greed and entitlement poisoned everything. In the end, I decided to decline. "Thank you for the invitation," I replied. "I am not ready for a family gathering yet. I hope you understand." They did not respond, but the following week a delivery arrived at my apartment. A small package from my mother. Inside there was a photo album from my childhood along with a note. "I have been reflecting on where things went wrong. I am sorry we hurt you." It was not a full acknowledgement of how they had wronged me, but it was something. I put the album on my bookshelf, not ready to look through it yet, but unwilling to discard it either. As Christmas approached, Lucas invited me to join his family for their celebration. "No pressure," he assured me, "but they would love to meet you." I accepted. His family turned out to be warm and welcoming, without any of the undercurrents of competition and comparison I grew up with. His mother hugged me like she had known me for years, and his father kept my wine glass full all evening. By the end of the night, I felt more at home with these strangers than I had with my own family in recent years. "Your family is wonderful," I told Lucas as we drove back to my place. "They really liked you," he said, reaching for my hand. "Fair warning, my mom is already planning our wedding." We both laughed, but the comment did not fill me with anxiety as it might have months earlier. Instead, I felt a gentle warmth at the possibility of a future with this kind, stable man. January, 7 months after the wedding fiasco, I received a text message from Natalia. "I am pregnant. Due in August. I know things are bad between us, but I thought you should know. You are going to be an aunt." I did not reply immediately. The news stirred complicated feelings. Joy at the thought of a niece or nephew. Sadness at the family rift that meant I might never know this child. Anger that Natalia might be using this news to manipulate me into reconciliation. After careful consideration, I sent a simple reply. "Congratulations to you both." Life went on. My relationship with Lucas deepened. My suburban apartment found tenants, a young professional couple who paid their rent on time and did not demand I gift them the property. At work, I received another promotion, becoming one of the youngest executives in the company's history. Sometimes I still think about my family and the strange turn our relationships took. I wonder if we will ever find our way back to each other. If there can be healing after such a profound breach of trust. For now, however, I am focused on building my own life. One based on mutual respect and genuine care. Not obligation and exploitation. And for the first time in years, I am truly happy. If this story resonates with you, give it a like so others can find it too. Do not forget to comment and subscribe for more stories that show how sometimes standing firm, even against family, can lead you exactly where you need to be. Life's toughest lessons often guide us to our greatest happiness.